Hello. In this video, we are learning to analyze the need to monitor the environment. We'll start by examining why we might want to monitor and care for our environment. We will then look at some of the sources of human impact on the environment. Finally, we will wrap up by looking at an exam-style question to put our understanding to the test. Let's jump into it. We will be using some important scientific language in this video, so let's go over some key definitions before we start. Anthropogenic means caused by humans. It comes from the Greek words for beginning from humans. Biodiversity is a measure of the number of organisms in a given ecosystem. It measures both the number of different species and the number of individuals in each species. The biosphere is all of the living things on Earth. We sometimes talk about living things like this in order to identify the factors that affect all organisms and highlight the interconnectedness of all ecosystems. Ecosystems are communities of living things interacting with each other and the non-living factors of their environment. The enhanced greenhouse effect is the process by which the atmosphere traps more radiation from the sun than it would otherwise. It is a significant factor in climate change and is caused by an increase in the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Eutrophication is the process of excess nutrients building up in an ecosystem. This usually occurs in waterways where runoff from agriculture builds up over time. Let's start by explicitly looking at the motivation we might have for caring for the environment. We should be interested in caring for the environment for a number of reasons. Human beings inhabit an ecosystem in the same way that all other organisms do. The health of individual members of an ecosystem depends upon the health, balance, and stability of the ecosystem as a whole. By ensuring that the natural environment is kept in balance, biodiversity can be maintained. Biodiversity is one of the key components of our biosphere and is a core factor that allows organisms to thrive. Having a diverse, robust, and healthy biosphere ensures that the Earth will be a habitable and beautiful environment for humans for generations to come. Furthermore, an environment free from toxic pollution will directly improve the health of humans. The way that human beings interact with their environment is fundamentally different to the way other organisms do, however. Humans have the power to shape their environment, to create entirely new compounds and materials, and to extract resources at a scale and efficiency that would be unimaginable for other species. As a result, it is imperative that we acknowledge our power to alter the natural world and our power to destroy it. We have a responsibility to our descendants to leave a world worth inhabiting, and a responsibility to all other living things to minimize our negative impacts on the environment. Monitoring the environment is a key component of managing and looking after it. Being able to quantify human impact on the environment is a core element of minimizing harm and increasing the positive effects we are able to have. Long-term monitoring can also give us insight into trends that we may not see otherwise. Monitoring allows us to identify sources of human impact, as well as determine the scale of the impact that we are having. Methods of monitoring the environment include measuring the concentration of pollutants such as inorganic salts, heavy metals, and organic compounds. This work can be done by analytical chemists. It also includes monitoring the living organisms that inhabit relevant ecosystems. Biologists and ecologists take surveys of habitats to see how the populations of organisms change over time. It also includes scientists who monitor the landscape for the way it changes over time and how this affects living organisms. Let's have a look at some of the sources of pollution in our environment. Pollution comes in many forms. Physical pollution can include things like plastics and building materials. These substances may not be biodegradable and so remain in the environment for long periods of time. Some organisms may suffer by ingesting these pollutants. For example, many seabirds die after consuming pieces of plastic that their digestive systems cannot break down. Air pollution includes the emission of dangerous and toxic gases, as well as greenhouse gases and particulate emissions. The emission of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane contribute directly to anthropogenic, meaning human-caused, climate change. In addition, the deterioration of air quality can lead to disease in both humans and other organisms. Chemical pollution includes the emission of inorganic salts, heavy metals, and organic compounds into the environment. This can be especially harmful as many of these compounds either do not exist in nature or are only found as traces. When these substances are allowed to build up and be released in high concentrations to the environment, they can cause a multitude of problems. The increase in concentration of inorganic compounds such as nitrogen and phosphorus compounds, as well as other salts, changes the chemistry of soil and water. Ecosystems depend upon equilibrium, predictability, and balance. A sudden imbalance in nutrients and other chemicals can be immediately toxic or can simply favor some organisms over others, leading to often irreversible change in an ecosystem. Organic compounds including cleaning products, pesticides, and pharmaceuticals also make their way into the environment from human activities. These compounds can have toxic effects on living things and can also be carcinogenic or lead to other long-term problems. Heavy metals are a group of elements that have a relatively high density and are toxic even at low concentrations. These include lead, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, zinc, silver, copper, iron, chromium, nickel, palladium, and platinum. These metals exist in the environment naturally, although at very low concentrations. Human activities, such as mining, agriculture, and sewage, release these metals into the environment where they can accumulate in living things. Heavy metals cause short and long-term health issues for humans and other organisms. This can include cancer, immunological conditions, and neurological conditions. Now let's have a closer look at some of the causes of environmental contamination. Mining is a significant source of pollution for a number of reasons. Air pollution is caused by dust released by digging. Diesel fumes and other emissions contribute to the enhanced greenhouse effect and air pollution. Materials left over from mining leach into waterways and groundwater. Use of and contamination of groundwater can cause profound environmental damage. This is compounded by the fact that it is a finite resource that cannot be replenished as quickly as it's used up. Soil erosion can lead to significant environmental degradation. Hollowing out land removes vegetation, exposing topsoil and making areas vulnerable to erosion. It also contributes directly to habitat destruction. Open pit mining can cause extensive and long-lasting damage to the environment because of physical destruction in concert with the chemicals left behind from the mining process. It's important to monitor the load on the environment of these pollutants and destruction. Mining often occurs in remote regions, and so it can be easy to cover up damage and difficult to address non-ideal impacts. Scientists are working on improving this monitoring through the use of satellite imagery in combination with chemical and analytical testing of groundwater, waterways, and soil quality. Agriculture is a necessary industry and one of the largest. It has serious environmental impacts including pollution, soil degradation, water pollution and degradation, and air pollution. Agriculture also has the potential to have positive impacts including carbon sequestration, mitigating the effects of natural disasters, and enhancing the functioning of indigenous ecosystems. Common practices in agriculture can have long-term and unforeseen consequences. These include irrigation, which causes groundwater to rise, increases the salinity of water and soil, and leads to collection of trace elements in water supplies. Tillage can lead to the destruction of soil structure and nutrients, leading to desertification. Hormone usage can have a toxic effect on the environment. Animal waste can similarly contaminate soil and water. Agriculture uses pesticides and chemical fertilizers, both of which have negative impacts on the environment. Excess pesticide has a disastrous effect on local biodiversity that is enhanced by practices such as monocropping that favor a small group of species over the hundreds or thousands that a healthy ecosystem will naturally have. Fertilizer has allowed for the explosion of the human population, although excess fertilizer then enters waterways and other ecosystems, where it unbalances the delicate nutrient cycle that keeps biological systems in check. Eutrophication is the process of nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus compounds building up in an ecosystem due to human contamination such as agricultural runoff. This process can cause events such as algal blooms, where one group of organisms has a population explosion due to the excess nutrients. As a result, these organisms monopolize other resources such as sunlight and dissolve gases in water. Algal blooms resulting in eutrophication can cause mass death of fish and other important large organisms. Sewage is a necessary and important part of civil and social management. It is imperative that people are able to access safe, hygienic, and clean plumbing. Furthermore, the main purpose of sewage is to remove human biological waste from households. This waste is environmentally neutral alone, as it is animal waste and so biodegradable. The adverse effects of sewage arise from other forms of waste that are disposed of using the same infrastructure. Household waste today includes many synthetic chemicals such as soaps and other cleaning agents. These substances can alter the chemistry of wastewater, making it unsuitable for some purposes such as fertilizer. The increase in the use of pharmaceutical also complicates the treatment of wastewater. Many compounds used in drugs today are harmful to microorganisms or larger organisms. Industrial waste also makes its way into the sewage system, bringing with it heavy metals, organic compounds, and other contaminants. Research shows that improperly treated wastewater will increase the concentration of dangerous compounds and elements in waterways and groundwater beyond sustainable limits. It's important to monitor the output of the sewage system to ensure that human waste is not contaminating other ecosystems. In summary, it is vital that all human activity be undertaken in a thoughtful manner so that the impact on the environment can be minimized. A vital component of this process is environmental monitoring. Environmental monitoring allows scientists to find out new information about human impacts, as well as showing the scale of known anthropogenic problems. In addition, Australia and other governments have laws and regulations that ensure that minimum standards in terms of emissions and waste management are met. Mining, agriculture, sewage, and many other industries have significant impacts on surrounding ecosystems. Without environmental monitoring, it would be impossible to hold businesses and individuals to account for their choices and improve the outcomes for these ecosystems. Let's have a look at an exam-style question in order to cement our understanding. Analyze the need for monitoring the environment for 6 marks. It would be a good idea to pause the video here and have a go at writing your own answer to this question first. In order to properly answer this question, we need to provide an analysis, which means we must look at the components of an issue and draw relationships between them. I'm going to write a rough plan of my response before I write it and see if I can clearly identify how I will achieve 6 marks. First, I will introduce the ideas that I will be talking about. This is the fact that some chemicals cause significant environmental damage even at low concentrations. Then I will use 2 specific examples to show why environmental monitoring is important, and draw a link between the work of scientists and environmental health. The 2 examples of chemicals I will be using are heavy metals and phosphate and nitrate ions from fertilizers. Certain chemicals can cause significant environmental damage, even at low concentrations. These include heavy metal ions and phosphate and nitrate ions. Heavy metals are elements that have high density and high toxicity to organisms. These include cadmium and lead. Heavy metal ions are released from human activities such as mining and fuel use. When in the environment, these ions can bioaccumulate, building up inside the bodies of organisms including humans, where they can cause short or long-term health problems. Environmental monitoring allows scientists to quantify the level of heavy metal pollution and take steps to reduce it if necessary. This has benefits for natural ecosystems and humans. Phosphate and nitrate ions, initially in fertilizers, can enter waterways through agricultural runoff, accumulating in these systems. This buildup is called eutrophication and can cause algal blooms. When this algae dies, bacteria use up dissolved oxygen in the water as they metabolize the dead algae, often leading to mass fish death. It is therefore vital to monitor the environment to ensure the health and stability of these ecosystems. I've included a marking criteria here so you can mark your own response too. In this video, we examined the importance of monitoring the environment. To do this, we took a closer look at a few human activities that have significant environmental impacts. Please check out the description of this video for a transcript and a list of references. Thank you for watching. Make sure you leave any questions or feedback below. See you next time.